Good morning, all of you. In today's session of audio recording for visually impaired students, we will discuss the first unit of environmental studies, that is from a book which is designed by the UGC. The name of the book is a textbook for environmental studies for undergraduate courses of all branches of higher education. The first unit is the multidisciplinary nature of environmental studies. In this unit, we will discuss about, first of all, in the first section, the definition, scope, and the importance. In the second session, the need for public awareness, which further includes institutions in environment and the people in environment. This course on the environment is unlike any other. It is not only a collection of facts or information about the environment, it is about the way we all should live. It is expected to give you information about the environment that will lead to a concern for your own environment. When you develop this concern, you will begin to act at your own level to protect the environment we all live in. This is the objective of the course, and the syllabus is a framework on which we must all rely in our lives. This textbook deals with major environmental concerns that have been identified as important areas where background information is essential for a better understanding of our environment. It stresses on a balanced view of issues that affect our daily lives. These issues are related to the conflict between existing development strategies and the need for environmental conservation. Unlike most other textbooks, it only it not only makes the reader better informed on these concerns, but is expected to lead them or her towards positive action to improve the environment. There are three reasons for studying the state of environment. Firstly, is the need for the information that clarifies modern environmental concept such as the need to conserve biodiversity, the need to lead more sustainable lifestyles, and the need to use resources more equitably. Secondly, there is a need to change the way in which we view our own environment by a practical approach based on observation and self learning. Thirdly, there is the need to create a concern for the environment that will trigger pro environmental action, including activities we can do in our daily life to protect it. Now, the first topic, that is the definition and the scope and the importance. First of all, first heading, that is the definition. Environmental studies deals with the every issue that affect an organism. It is essentially a multidisciplinary approach that brings about an appreciation of our natural world and human impacts on its integrity. It is an applied science as it seeks practical answers to make human civilization sustainable on the earth's finite resources. Its component includes biology, geology, chemistry, physics, engineering, sociology, health, anthropology, economics, statistics, computers, and philosophy. Next is the scope. As we look around at the area in which we live, we see that our surroundings were originally a natural landscape such as forest, a river, a mountain, a desert, or a combination of these elements. Most of us live in landscapes that have been heavily modified by human beings in villages, towns, or cities. But even those of us who lives in cities get our food supply from surrounding villages, and these in turn are dependent on natural landscapes such as forests, grasslands, rivers, seashores, for resources such as water for agriculture, fuel wood, fodder, and the fish. Thus, our daily lives are linked with our surrounding and inevitably affects them. We use water to drink and for other day to day activities. We breathe air, we use resources from which food is made, and we depend on the community of living plants and animals which form a web of life of which we are also a part. Everything around us forms our environment, and our lives depend on keeping its vital system as intact as possible. Our dependence on nature is so great that we cannot continue to live without protecting the Earth's environmental resources. Thus, most traditions refer to our environment as Mother Nature, and most traditional societies have learned that respecting nature is vital for their livelihoods. This has led to many cultural practices that helped traditional societies protect and preserve their natural resources. Respect for nature and all living creatures is not new to India. All our traditions are based on these values. Emperor Ashoka's edict proclaimed that all forms of life are important for our well-being in 4th century BC. Over the past 200 years, however, modern societies begin to believe that easy answers to the questions of producing more resources could be provided by means of technological innovations. For example, though growing more food by using fertilizers and pesticides, developing better strains of domestic animals and crops, irrigating farmlands through mega dams, and developing industry led to rapid economic growth. The ill effect of this type of development led to environmental degradation. The industrial development and intensive agriculture that provides the goods for our increasingly consumer oriented society uses up large amount of natural resources such as water, minerals, petroleum products, wood, etc. Non-renewable resources such as minerals and oils are those which will be exhausted in future if we continue to extract these without a thought for subsequent generations. Renewable resources such as timber and water are those which can be used but be regenerated by natural resources processes such as regrowth or rainfall. But these two will be depleted if we continue to use them faster than nature can replace them. For example, if the removal of the timber and the firewood from a forest is faster than the regrowth and regeneration of trees, it cannot replenish the supply, and loss of forest cover not only depletes the forest of its resources such as timber and other non-wood products but affect our water resources because an intact natural forest acts like a sponge which holds water and releases it slowly. Deforestation leads to floods in the monsoon and dry river once the rains are over. Such multiple effects on the environment resulting from routine human activities must be appreciated by each one of us if it is to provide us with the resources we need in the long term. Our natural resources can be compared with the money in a bank. If we use it rapidly, the capital will be reduced to zero. On the other hand, if we use only the interest, it can sustain us over the longer term. This is called sustainable utilization or the development. Activity 1. Take any article that you use in daily life, a bucket full of water or an item of food, a table or a book. trace its components, journey backwards from your home to their origins as natural resources in our environment. How many of these components are renewable resources and how many non-renewable? Understanding and making ourselves more aware of our environmental assets and problems is not enough. We, each one of us, must become increasingly concerned about our environment and change the way in which we use every resource. Unsustainable utilization can result from our use of resources because of population increase and because many of us are using more resources than we really need. Most of us indulge in wasteful behavior patterns without ever thinking about their environmental impacts. Thus, for all our actions to be environmentally positive, we need to look from a new perspective at how we use resources. For every resource we use, we must ask ourselves the following questions. What is the rarity of the resource and where does it originate? Who uses it most intensively and how? How is it being overused or misused? Who is responsible for its improper use? The resource collector, the middleman, the end user. How can we help to conserve it and prevent its unsustainable use? Activity 2. Try to answer the questions above for one of the components in the article. You choose in activity 1 the answer the following questions. Are you using that resource unsustainably? In what ways could you reduce, reuse, and recycle that resource? Is there any unequal distribution of this resource so that you are more fortunate than many others who have less access to it? Once we begin to ask these questions of ourselves, we will begin to live lifestyles that are more sustainable and will support our environment. Next topic is importance. Environment is not a single subject. It is an integration of several subjects that include both science and the social studies. To understand all the different aspects of our environment, we need to understand biology, chemistry, physics, geography, resource management, economics, and population issues. Thus, the scope of environmental studies is extremely wide and covers some aspects of nearly every major discipline. We live in a world in which natural resources are limited: water, air, soil, minerals, oils, the products we get from forest, grassland, oceans, and from agriculture and livestock are all a part of our life support systems. Without them, life itself would be impossible. As we keep increasing in numbers and the quantity of resources, each of us uses also increases. The Earth's resource base must inevitably shrink. The Earth cannot be expected to sustain this expanding level of utilization of resources. Adding to this is the misuse of resources. We waste the pollute large amount of nature's clean water. We create more and more material like plastic that we discard after a single use, and we waste colossal amount of food which is discarded as garbage. Manufacturing processes create solid waste, byproducts that are discarded, as well as chemicals that flow out as liquid waste and pollute water, and gases that pollute the air. Increasing amount of waste cannot be managed by natural processes. These accumulate in our environment, leading to a variety of diseases and other adverse environmental impacts, now seriously affecting all our lives. Air pollution leads to respiratory diseases, water pollution to gastrointestinal diseases, and many pollutants are known to cause cancer. Improving this situation will only happen if each of us begin to take action in our daily lives that will help preserve our environmental resources. We cannot expect government alone to manage the safeguarding of the environment, nor can we expect other people to prevent environmental damage. We need to do it ourselves. It is a responsibility that each of us must take on as one's own. Activity 3. Think of all the things that you do in a day. List these activities and identify the main resources used during these activities. What can you do to prevent waste? Reuse articles that you normally throw away. What recycled material can you use? Think of the various energy resources you use every day. How could you reduce their use? Activity 4. Exercises in self-learned about the environment. Attempt to assess the level of damage to the environment due to your actions that have occurred during your last working day, the last week, the last year. Then estimate the damage you are likely to do in your lifetime if you continue in your present ways. Use the following example for the above exercise. Example: plastic bags, plastic ball pens. Think about all the articles you use daily that are made from plastic. Plastic plays an important part in our modern lives. Make a list of plastical articles you usually use. How can you reduce the amount of plastic you use? What effect does plastic have on our environment? Where did the plastic come from and how is it made? What happens to it when you throw it away? Where does it go? Example: fossil fuels. How much do you use? Can you reduce your consumption? What effect does it have on the air we breathe? When we leave a motorbike or the car running during a traffic stop, we do not usually remember that fuel we are wasting is a part of a non-renewable resource that the earth cannot reform. Once all the fossil fuels are burnt off, it will mean the end of the oil as a source of energy. Only if each of us contribute our part in conserving fossil based energy can we make it last longer on earth. Next example: water. How much do you really need to use as against how much you waste when you point number 1, brush your teeth. Point number 2, have a bath. Point number 3, wash clothes. Point number 4, wash the scooter or the car. Where did the water come from? What is its actual resource? How has it reached you? Where will the wastewater go? Do you feel you should change the way you use water? How can you change this so that it is more sustainable? Next example is food. Where has it come from? How is it grown? What chemicals are used in its production? How does it reach you? How is it cooked? How much is wasted? How is the waste disposed of? Next example is paper. What is it made from? Where does it come from? And what happens during manufacture? How much do you use and how much do you waste? How can you prevent it from being wasted? Next example is electrical energy. How much do you use every day? Where does it come from? How do you waste it? How can you conserve energy? The next heading is productive value of the nature. As scientists make new advances in field such as biotechnology, we begin to understand that the world species contain an incredible and uncountable number of complex chemicals. These are the raw materials that are used for developing new medicines and industrial products and are a storehouse from which to develop thousands of new products in the future. The flowering plants and the insects that form the most species rich group of living organisms are thus vital for the future development of the man. If we degrade their habitat, these species will become extinct. If one sees being sold or used a product that come from an illegally killed wild species, if we do not inform the authorities, we become party of its extinction. Once they are lost, man can not bring them back. When we permit the destruction of a forest, wetland, or other natural area and do not protest about it, future generations are being denied the use of these valuable resources and will blame us for these rash and negligent actions towards the environment. Thus, the urgent need to protect all living species is a concept that we need to understand and act upon. While individually we perhaps cannot directly prevent the extinction of a species, creating a strong public opinion to protect the national parks and wildlife sanctuaries in which wild species live is an important aspect of sustainable living. There is a close link between agriculture and the forest, which illustrates its productive value. For crop to be successful, the flowers of fruit trees and vegetables must be pollinated by insects, bats, and birds. Their life cycles, however, frequently require intact forests. Next heading, aesthetic and recreational value of nature. The aesthetic and recreational values that nature possesses enlivens our existence on earth. This is created by developing national parks and wildlife sanctuaries in relatively undisturbed areas. A true wilderness experience has not only recreational value but is an incredible learning experience. It brings about an understanding of the oneness of nature and the fact that we are entirely dependent upon the intricate functioning of ecosystems. The beauty of the nature encompasses every aspect of the living and non-living part of the earth. One can appreciate the magnificence of a mountain, the power of the sea, the beauty of a forest, and the vast expanse of the desert. It is these natural vistas and their incredible diversity of plant and animal life that has led to the development of several philosophies of life. It has also inspired artists to develop visual arts and writers and poets to create their works that vitalize our lives. A wilderness experience has exceptional recreational value. This has been described as nature tourism or wildlife tourism and is also one aspect of adventure tourism. These recreational facilities not only provide a pleasurable experience but are intended to create a deep respect and love for nature. They are also key tools in educating people about the fragility of the environment and the need for sustainable lifestyles. In an urban setting, green spaces and gardens are vital to the psychological and physical health of city developers. It provides not only an aesthetic, it provides not only a aesthetic and visual appeal, but the ability to ensure that each individual is able to assess a certain amount of peace and tranquility. Thus, urban environmental planners must ensure that these facilities are created in growing urban complexes. Another important conservation education facility in urban setting includes the need to set up well-designed and properly managed zoological parks and aquariums. These have got great value in sensitizing school students to wildlife. Many young people who frequently visits zoos as young children grow up to love wildlife and become conservationists. In the absence of access to the protected area, a botanical garden, or a zoo, one concept that can be developed is to create small nature awareness areas with interpretation facilities at district and Toloka levels. These areas can be developed to mimic natural ecosystem even though they could be relatively small in size. Such nature trails are invaluable assessed for creating conservation education and awareness. They can be developed in a small wood lot, a patch of grassland, a pond ecosystem, or be situated along an undisturbed river or coastal area. This would bring home to the visitor the importance of protecting our dwindling wilderness areas. The optional value of nature. What is the optional value of nature? While we utilize several goods and services of nature and enjoy its benefits, we must recognize that every activity that we do in our daily lives has an adverse impact on nature's integrity. Thus, we use up all our resources, kill off and let species of plants and animals become extinct on earth, pollute our air and water, degrade land, and create enormous quantities of waste. We as a generation will leave nothing for future generations. Our present generation has developed its economies and lifestyles on unsustainable pattern of life. However, nature provides us with various options on how we utilize its goods and services. This is its option value. We can use up goods and services greedily and destroy its integrity and long term values, or we can use its resources sustainably and reduce our impacts on the environment. The optional value allow us to use its resources sustainably and preserve its goods and services for the future. Next heading, need for public awareness. As the Earth's natural resources are dwindling and our environment is being increasingly degraded by the human activities, it is evident that something need to be done. We often feel that managing all this is something that the government should do. But if we go on endangering our environment, there is no way in which the government can perform all these cleanup functions. It is the prevention of environment degradation in which we must all take part that must become a part of all our lives. Just as for any disease, prevention is better than cure. To prevent ill effects on our environment by our actions is economically more viable than cleaning up the environment once it is damaged. Individually, we can play a major role in environment management. We can reduce wasting natural resources, and we can act as watchdogs that inform the government about sources that led to pollution and degradation of our environment. This can only be made possible through mass public awareness. Mass media such as newspaper, radio, television strongly influence public opinion. However, someone has to bring this about. If each of us feels strongly about the environment, the press and the media will add to our efforts. Politicians in a democracy always respond positively to a strong publicly supported movement. Thus, if you join an NGO that support conservation, politician will make green policies. We are living on spaceship Earth with a limited supply of resources. Each of us is responsible for spreading this message to as many people as possible. Suggested further activities for concerned students. Join a group to study nature such as WWFI or BNHS or any another environmental group, being reading newspaper articles and periodicals such as Down to Earth, WWF1 newsletter, BNHS Hornbill, Century magazine, etc., that will tell you more about the environment. There are also several environmental websites. Lobby for conserving resources by taking up the cause of environmental issues during discussion with friends and relatives. Practice and promote issues such as saving paper, saving water, reducing use of plastic, practicing the 3 R's principle of reduce, reuse, recycle, and proper waste disposal. Join local movement that support activities such as saving trees in your area, go on natural tracks, recycle waste, buy environmentally friendly products. Practice and promote good civic sense, such as no spitting or tobacco chewing, no throwing garbage on the road, no smoking in public places, no urinating or defecating in public places. Take part in events organized on World Environmental Day, Wildlife Week, etc. Visit a national park or sanctuary or spend time in whatever nature you have near your home. Next heading is institutions in environment. There have been several government and non-government organizations that have led to environmental protection in our country. They have led to a growing interest in environmental protection and conservation of nature and natural resources. The traditional conservation practices that were part of ancient India's culture have, however, gradually disappeared. Public awareness is thus a critical need to further environmental protection. Among the large number of institutions that deal with environmental protection and conservation, a few well-known organizations include government organizations such as the BSI and ZSI, and NGOs such as BNHS, WWF1, etc. Next heading is Bombay Natural History Society, BNHS, Mumbai. The BNHS began as a small society of 6 members in 1883. It grew from a group of shikaris and people from all walks of life into a major research organization that sustainably influenced conservation policy in the country. The influence on wildlife policy building, research, popular publications, and people's action have been unique feature of the multifaceted society. Undoubtedly, its major contribution has been in the field of wildlife research. It is the India's oldest conservation research-based NGO and one that has acted at the forefront of the battle for species and ecosystems. The BNHS publishes a popular magazine called Hornbill and also an internationally well-known journal on natural history. Its other publications include the Salim Ali Handbook on Birds, J.C. Daniel Book of Indian Reptiles, S.H. Prater's Book of Indian Mammals, and P.V. Ball's Book of Indian Trees. One of the greatest scientists was Dr. Salim Ali, whose ornithological work on the birds of the Indian subcontinent is world famous. The BNHS has over the years helped government to frame wildlife related laws and has taken up battles such as the Save the Silent Valley campaign. Next one is Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF1, New Delhi. The WWF1 was initiated in 1969 in Mumbai, after which the headquarters were shifted to Delhi, with several branch offices all over the India. The early years focused attention on wildlife education and awareness. It runs several programs, including the Nature Club of the India program for school children, and work as a think tank and lobby force for environment and development issues. Next one is Center for Science and Environment, CSE, New Delhi. Activities of this center include organizing campaigns, holding workshops and conferences, and producing environment related publications. It published a major document on the state of India's environment, the first of its kind to be produced as a citizen report on the environment. The CSC also publishes a popular magazine, Down to Earth, which is a science and environment fortnightly. It is involved in the publication of material in the form of books, posters, video films, and also conduct workshops and seminars on biodiversity related issues. The next one is CPR, Environmental Education Center, Madras. The CPR EEC was set up in 1988. It conducts a variety of programs to spread environmental awareness and creates an interest in conservation among the general public. It focused attention on NGOs, teachers, women, youth, and children to generally promote conservation of nature and natural resources. Its program include components on wildlife and biodiversity issues. CPREEC also produces a large number of publications. Next one is Center for Environment Education, CEE, Ahmedabad. The Center for Environment Education, Ahmedabad, was initiated in 1989. It has a wide range of programs on the environment and produces a variety of educational material. The CEE's Training in Environmental Education, TEE, program has trained many environment educators. Next one is Bharati Vidyapith Institute for Environment Education and Research, BVIEER, Pune. This is part of Bharati Vidyapith deemed university. The institute has a PhD, a master's, and bachelor programs in environmental sciences. It also offers an innovative diploma in environment education for in-service teachers. It implements a large outreach program that has covered over 135 schools in which it trained teachers and conduct fortnightly environment education programs. Biodiversity conservation is a major focus of its research initiatives. It develops low-cost interpretation centers for natural and architectural sites that are highly local specific, as well as a large amount of innovative environmental educational material for a variety of target groups. Its unique feature is that it conducts environment education from primary school level to the postgraduate level. The BVIEER has produced several EE aids. It has developed a teacher's handbook linked to the school curriculum, a textbook for UGC for its undergraduate course on environment. Its director has developed a CD-ROM on India's biodiversity published by Mupin Publishers, Ahmedabad. Next one is Uttarakhand Sevanidhi, UKSN, Almora. The organization is a nodal agency which supports NGOs in need of funds for their environment related activities. Its major program is organizing and training school teachers to use its local specific environment education workbook program. The main targets are linked with sustainable resource use at the village level through training school children's. Its environment education program covers about 500 schools. Next one is Karl Pavriksh Pune. This NGO, initially Delhi based, is now working from Pune and is active in several other parts of the India. Karl Pavriksh works on a variety of fronts: education and awareness, investigation and research, direct action and lobbying, and litigation which regards to environment and development issues. Its activities include talks, and audiovisuals in schools and colleges, nature walks, and outstation camps, organizing student participation in ongoing campaign, including street demonstrations, pushing for consumer awareness regarding organic food, press statements, handling green alerts, and meeting with the city's administrators. It is involved with the preparation of site-specific environmental manuals for school teachers. Karl Pavrich was responsible for developing India's National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan in 2003. Next one is Slim Ali Center for Ornithology and Natural History, Secon, Coimbatore. This institute was Dr. Salim Ali's dream that become that became a reality only after his demise. He wished to support a group of committed conservation scientists on a permanent basis. Initially conceived as being a wing of the Bombay Natural History Society (BNHS), it later developed as an independent organization based at Coimbatore in 1990. It has instituted a variety of field programs that have added to the country's information on our threatened biodiversity. Next one is Wildlife Institute of India, WII, Dehradun. This institution was developed in 1982 as a major training establishment for forest officials and research in wildlife management. Its most significant publication has been Planning a Wildlife Protected Area Network for India, the Rogers and Pawar 1988. The organization has over the years added an enormous amount of information on India's biological wealth. It has trained a large number of forest department officials and staff as wildlife managers. Its MSc program has trained excellent wildlife scientists. It also has an environment impact assessment EIA cell. It trains personnel in eco development, wildlife biology, habitat management, and nature interpretation. Next one is Botanical Survey of India BSI. The Botanical Survey of India BSI was developed in 1890 at the Royal Botanical Garden, Calcutta. However, it closed down for several years after 1939 and was reopened in 1954. In 1952, plans were made to reorganize the BSI and formulate its objectives. By 1955, the BSI has its headquarters in Calcutta with circle offices at Coimbatore, Shillong, Pune, Dehradun. Between 1962 and 1979, offices were established in Ahmedabad, Allahabad, Jodhpur, Port Blair, Itanagar, and Gangtok. BSI currently has 9 regional centers. It carries out surveys of plant resources in different regions. Next one is Geological Survey of India, ZSI. The ZSI was established in 1916. Its mandate was to do a systematic survey of fauna in India. It has over the years collected type specimens on the basis of which our animal life has been studied over the years. Its origins were collections based at the Indian Museum at Calcutta, which was established in 1875. Older collections of the Asiatic Society of Bengal, which were made between 1814 and 1875, as well as those of the Indian Museum made between 1875 and 1916, were then transferred to the ZSI. Today, it has a million specimens. This makes it one of the largest collection in Asia. It has done an enormous amount of work on taxonomy and ecology. It currently operates from 16 regional centers. Next heading is People in Environment. There are several internationally known environmental thinkers. Among those who have made landmarks, the names that are usually mentioned are Charles Darwin, Ralph Emerson, Henry Thoreau, John Muir, Aldo Leopold, Rachel Carson, and E.O. Wilson. Each of these thinkers looked at the environment from a completely different perspective. Charles Darwin wrote The Origin of Species, which brought to light the close relationship between habitat and species. It brought about a new thinking of man's relationship with other species that were based on evolution. Alfred Wallace came to the same conclusion during his work. Ralph Emerson spoke of the dangers of commerce to our environment way back in the 1840s. Henry Thoreau in 1860 wrote that the wilderness should be preserved after he lived in the wild for a year. He felt that most people did not care for nature and would sell it off for a small sum of money. John Muir is remembered as having saved the great ancient sequoia trees in California's forest. In the 1890s, he formed the Sierra Club, which is a major conservation NGO in the USA. Aldo Leopold was a forest official in the US in the 1920s. He designed the early policies on wilderness conservation and wildlife management. The 1960s, Rachel Carson published several articles that caused immediate worldwide concern on the effect of pesticides on the nature and mankind. She wrote a well-known book called Silent Spring, which eventually led to a change in the government policies and public awareness. E.O. Wilson is an entomologist who envisaged that biological diversity was a key to human survival on Earth. He wrote Diversity of Life in 1993, which was awarded a prize for the best book published on environmental issues. His writing brought home to the world the risk to mankind due to man-made disturbances in natural ecosystem that are led to the rapid extinction of species at the global level. There have been a number of individuals who have been instrumental in shaping the environmental history in our country. Some of the well known names in the last century include environmentalists, scientists, administrators, legal experts, educationalists, and journalists. Slim Ali's name is synonymous with ornithology in India and with the Bombay Natural History Society (BNHS). He also wrote several great books, including the famous Book of Indian Birds. His autobiography, Fall of a Sparrow, should be read by every nature enthusiast enthusiastic. He was our country leading conservation scientist and influenced environmental policies in our country for over 50 years. Indira Gandhi as PM has played a highly significant role in the preservation of India's wildlife. It was during his period as PM that the network of PAs grew from 65 to 298. The Wildlife Protection Act was formulated during the period when she was PM, and the Indian Board for Wildlife was extremely active as she personally chaired all its meetings. India gained a name for itself by being a major player in cities and other international environmental treaties and accords during her tenure. BNHS frequently used her good will to get conservation action initiated by the government. SP Godrej was one of the India's greatest supporters of wildlife conservation and nature awareness program. Between 1975 and 1999, SP Godrej received 10 awards for his conservation activities. He was awarded the Padma Bhushan in 1999. His friendship with people in power combined with his deep commitment for conservation led to his playing a major advocacy role for wildlife in India. M.S. Swaminathan is one of the India's foremost agricultural scientists and has been concerned with various aspects of biodiversity conservation, both of cultivars and wild biodiversity. He has founded the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation in Chennai, which does work on the conservation of biological diversity. Madhav Gadgil is a well-known ecologist in India. His interests range from broad ecological issues such as developing community biodiversity registers and conserving sacred groves to studies on the behavior of mammals, birds, and insects. He has written several articles published in journals and is the author of 6 books. MC Mehta is undoubtedly India's most famous environmental lawyer. Since 1984, he has filed several public interest litigation for supporting the cause of environmental conservation. His most famous and long drawn battles supported by the Supreme Court include protecting the Taj Mahal, cleaning up the Ganges River, banning intensive shrimp farming on the coast, initiating government to implement environmental education in schools and colleges, and a variety of other conservation issues. Anil Agarwal was a journalist who wrote the first report on the state of India's environment in 1982. He founded the Center for Science and Environment, which is an active NGO that supports various environmental issues. Medha Patkar is known as one of India's champion who has supported the cause of downtrodden tribal people whose environment is being affected by the dams on the Narmada River. Sundarlal Bahugana's Chipko movement has become an internationally well-known example of a highly successful conservation action program through the effort of local people for guarding their forest resources. His fight to prevent the construction of the Tehri Dam in a fragile earthquake prone setting is a battle that he continues to wage. The Garhwal Hills will always remember his dedication to the cause for which he has walked over 20,000 kilometers. Thank you. That all about the unit 1. In the next lecture, we will discuss the next unit, that is the natural resources. Thank you. That's all about today's lecture. Thank you.